And the U.S. is now escalating pressure on Iran, not just militarily, but economically. Donald Trump has vowed to halt commercial movement through the Strait of Hormuz, a move that targets Iran's critical oil lifeline. With nearly a fifth of global energy flows at stake, the strategy risks triggering a wider economic and geopolitical shock. The disruption in the strait is now reaching critical levels. At least 22 ships have been attacked since late February, with 10 crew members killed and nearly 800 vessels stranded, including close to 400 oil tankers, and around 20,000 seafarers are currently unable to transit safely, highlighting the human and logistical cost of the crisis. With over 20% of global energy flowing through this corridor, the scale of disruption is unprecedented. The U.S. strategy is to choke Iran's oil revenue by restricting access, but the impact is already spreading far beyond Iran. Around 230 oil-laden vessels are currently stuck, creating a growing backlog in global supply chains. A critical gap is now emerging between market expectations and physical supply. Every day of restriction tightens supply, pushes prices higher, and amplifies risks across energy, food, and manufacturing systems. The crisis is also changing the nature of global trade routes. What was once free transit is now becoming conditional access. Shipping through Hormuz is increasingly being restricted, controlled, and negotiated. And this raises serious concerns over the integrity of global supply chains. Any precedent of control over such a critical corridor could reshape global trade dynamics. However, the economic squeeze comes with significant risks. Iran's Revolutionary Guard has warned of strong retaliation if foreign forces attempt to enforce a blockade. And this raises the possibility of a direct military escalation in the strait. Iran's parliament speaker has also warned of rising pump prices in the U.S. due to blockade. And well, the big question now is Iran overplaying its hand by challenging global access, or is the U.S. underestimating the cost of escalation? Now, with diplomacy failing to make progress, the Hormuz crisis is fast turning into a global economic flashpoint. And to discuss just more on this, we're now being joined live from London by Mark Brawlin, geoeconomic and geopolitical strategist and author. Thank you so much for joining us on the broadcast on the show.
Pleasure.
Now, let me just begin by, of course, asking about Trump's, now threat of naval blockade. Is it right to say that Donald Trump has now trumped Iran by attempting to block the Hormuz or not?
Well, yes, there is a blockade against on top of another blockade. So that's sort of a first in a sense, sensational in one sense. But I think also that this is Trump still bargaining. He's now bargaining with trying a different stick. And I think we can see on the oil price, they haven't gone up that much. They have gone up a bit. But I think everyone is sort of still pricing in that this is still part of the negotiation game. And I think it's the same from the Iranian side. They don't have the capacity to keep going. They don't have that many missiles left. So I think this is still, they're still just, they left Pakistan. Well, J.D. Vance left on Saturday. But I think they're still trying to play this as a negotiation game.
If that is true, then, of course, according to the Wall Street Journal report, they have cited sources saying that Trump is also considering resumption of limited military strikes in Iran, and that is an attempt to break this peace talk stalemate. Do you think that is not going to be an escalation?
Yeah, I mean, he always talks the talk. So does Iran. And he's going to threaten all sorts of things, just like Tehran is doing. And that's also part of the negotiation tactic. But I think both sides actually want to go back on this. Short term, there is only losers. Trump is losing clout on his home turf, domestically, political sport. And Iran, they are fighting desperately to just stay in power. So I think they want to find some face-saving way, both sides. But they still haven't. The choke point with the Strait of Hormuz is still in the game, and they still have to have a little bit more to be able to present as a win on the home turf. That's why this keeps going for a bit longer.
And considering the fact that Iran, of course, the Strait of Hormuz became a very big leverage for Iran, because when you talk about the talks before the war, it wasn't really even in the topics. It was just the nuclear energy. And of course, Vance and Trump has been talking about nuclear energy, that Iran should not have nuclear weapons. And now with Iran having the Strait of Hormuz as a leverage, and now that potentially becoming the place where Trump is wanting to attack, do you think Iran can actually sustain at this point after this 2-month war already?
They can sustain it for a bit longer, but not so much longer. And I think that's why Team Trump miscalculated in the first place. They didn't think Iran would use this card because it actually hits them very hard themselves. This is the artery of the Iranian economy. So they are losing every day when there is problem in the Strait of Hormuz. So they are playing it as actually the only strong card they have left, because it creates havoc in the world economy and among Western world energy consumers, of course. So they are just gambling on the patience of the Western world will drop quicker than it does in Iran. And of course, they don't really care about, famously, they don't really care about their own people. So they can keep going for a few more weeks, but the number of missiles they have is they don't have that many left. And the economy is in dire straits. And of course, they keep up appearances to all the outside world, but we shouldn't trick ourselves into thinking that the Iranian regime is a strong one. It's not.
But when we look at the situation in Strait of Hormuz, it's not just, of course, a point of contention or weakness for Iran, but it's also a weakness for the global economy at this point. It's not just Iran that's suffering, it's also the U.S. suffering, it's also the West suffering. Do you think there's going to be an attempt? So far, well, UK has denied, and Spain have, of course, rebuted this remark and this blockade, naval blockade. Do you think there'll be other countries who will be willing to actually go and support U.S. with this naval blockade?
Well, you have the Gulf states, and of course that's quite important. And I think the UK is saying no for domestic reasons. Starmer is fighting for his life, and it doesn't play well to support Trump in the left-wing faction that's now sort of in control of the Labour Party. So we have a domestic situation, and of course Trump has been yelling at European leaders for such a long time, and now he wants their help, and that he didn't play that one very well. The European leaders are not going to come to Trump's help, but they might be doing so actually a little bit more secretly. The UK have always also said they will help to take away mines in the Strait. So even if they publicly will not give Trump any support, they might do so just a little bit on the back. Also because they also know that if they say Iran is not our war, Trump might say the same thing about Ukraine. So you might see secretly, we might see Europe coming a little bit more to Trump's help over the coming weeks. It's not for sure, but it could happen. But as you were saying, I mean, it is a major problem for the world economy. Again, everyone is losing about this short term. Long term, I think it's a different story. Long term, I think we can see that Iran is losing regional clout in a big way, and they have done so actually for decades. And I think this war might actually help strengthen the Israel, Sunni, and U.S. alliance. It's not going to help Trump. He has no way back from this. He's going to lose the midterm election, most likely, in November. But I think U.S. might add additional clout in the region, since they are sort of strengthening the alliance with Israel and with the Sunni world. And I think that was one of the reasons this was triggered in the first place, to stop that from happening.
We also had Iranian FM foreign minister saying, Marakchi had said that we were inches close to this deal. It seemed like there was an effort to actually go ahead with the deal, but it didn't. They both did not agree to any some point. Do you think there is any way at this point that there are going to be an off-ramp, considering the fact that there's still a ceasefire that exists till 22nd of April?
Yes, I actually can't see any way out of this, but a sort of half-baked poor solution for every side. But at some point, it will be too costly for both sides, so they have to accept something. I don't know if it's before 22nd of April or not, but I think we only have a few more weeks left before they will, before Trump will be pushed domestically to pull away, and before Iranian regime simply will not have the capacity anymore. The Iranian regime, we forget this sometimes, but the Iranian regime in the late 1970s, they were one of the top economies in the region. They were only Saudi Arabia was the only one competing for the largest economy. Today they are number 6, and even Israel, which has Iran has, of course, 9 times the population of Israel. Israel has a much larger economy than Iran, which is, of course, a big failure on the Iranian part. So they are losing relatively. We're forgetting about this. And if you want to fight the war and if you want to create mayhem in a region, you have to have the economic capacity to pay your military. And I think this is the big story we sort of miss sometimes when we focus on the short term. Mess. Long-term regional clout of Iran is definitely diminishing, and the Sunni one is so they will not have the capacity to create the mayhem they have in over the last decades.
Of course, we'll have to wait and see if the naval blockade and anyone takes part in it. Thank you so much, Mark, for joining us on the broadcast and giving your analysis of the situation. Appreciate it.
Thank you.